Some traps are not sprung by the hands of enemies, but by the lips of the one who will suffer in them. Most people are not destroyed by grand betrayals or deliberate sabotage. They are dismantled by fragments of themselves. They have scattered carelessly in conversation, details surrendered in moments of calm or excitement become the blueprint of their undoing. The listener need not strike now. Patience will turn every fragment into leverage. And when the moment is right, the architect of the trap will realize it was built from their own words. You speak because silence feels heavy, because a blank space between sentences feels like a threat. You convince yourself that telling your story makes you understood, that revealing your scars makes you strong. But strength is not in how much you reveal. It's in how much you can bear without speaking. Every unnecessary detail you drop is a thread, and once that thread is in another's hands, they can pull until everything inside you is exposed. Machiavelli warned, "Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception." Oversharing is that deception in reverse. You surrender without a fight. You give them the map without demanding they find it. You want to believe your words are harmless. You want to think the person listening is a friend, that they will never use what they know. But trust is not a shield. It is a wager. People keep your secrets until the day it benefits them not to. The danger is not in their malice. It's in their opportunity. And the more you speak, the more opportunities you create for them. Each confession you make is not gone when you finish saying it. It is stored, cataloged, waiting. So you must learn the discipline of speaking with intent. Ask yourself if the sentence you are about to release would serve you if repeated. If not, let it rot unspoken. Let curiosity about you remain unanswered, because mystery is not an inconvenience. It is armor. The less they know, the less they can touch. And in a world where everyone listens for advantage, the strongest position is to remain unreadable, forcing them to guess, and making sure every guess costs them more than it costs you. Every story told is a transfer of power. The moment personal history leaves the mind of the one who lived it, it ceases to belong to them. It becomes a living fragment in the possession of another, ready to be reshaped, exaggerated, or strategically withheld. In the right hands, it can inspire trust. In the wrong hands, it becomes a silent weapon, one that requires no steel to cut and no blood to wound. This is the danger most never account for. The weapon does not need to be forged. It is spoken into existence. You give away pieces of yourself because it feels safe in the moment. The tone is warm. The nods are reassuring. The silence between their questions feels like an invitation. You start with small details, harmless anecdotes. But harmless is a temporary state. What you said in truth can be repeated in malice. What you meant with innocence can be reframed with venom. And once the story leaves your mouth, you lose the right to correct it. Machiavelli wrote, "Some men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims." You think you are simply confiding. They are simply collecting. There is a seduction in telling your story, a relief in feeling known. You want someone to understand the path you've walked, the obstacles you've survived, the wounds you still carry. But that relief blinds you to the cost. A friend may spend your story carelessly, passing it on without malice, simply for the currency of conversation. A small remark, an offhand retelling, a casual laugh. And your truth begins to spread beyond your control. An enemy, however, will spend it with precision. They will take the same details and place them where they will do the most damage. They can leak fragments when your position is weakest. twist facts until they no longer resemble the truth, or insert lies so seamlessly between your words that even you cannot untangle them. The most dangerous part is not the obvious attack. It is the slow erosion. You may not even know your story has been weaponized until relationships shift, opportunities vanish, or trust evaporates without explanation. A subtle alteration in tone, a change in the way others look at you, and you will feel it. Someone has been adjusting your reputation while you weren't watching. By then, it's too late to reclaim it. This is why every personal detail must be treated like currency. The more valuable the detail, the more carefully it must be guarded. Not everyone who asks is entitled to an answer. Not everyone who listens is doing so in good faith. And not everyone who repeats your words will do so as you intended. A story once told is like a ship pushed into open water. You cannot control its course, and you cannot bring it back to shore. You must learn the discipline of narrative starvation. Share less than you feel. Reveal only what is required for the role a person plays in your life. Let the complete version of your past exist only where it is safe. And understand that safety is always temporary. The ally of today may become the opportunist of tomorrow. The colleague you once trusted may be forced to protect themselves at your expense. What they know is what they can use, and what you keep is what keeps you untouchable. In a world where perception is currency, the most dangerous move is to let someone else own the mint. Trust is often mistaken for safety, but it has never been that. It is a transaction built on the assumption that another's interests will align with your own. This assumption holds only as long as circumstances remain stable. The moment the balance shifts, through ambition, necessity, or desperation, trust can be recalculated, renegotiated, and abandoned entirely. What once felt unshakable can collapse without warning, leaving the one who relied on it exposed. Trust does not remove danger. It simply delays it. You believe trust is a green light for honesty, that once it is granted, the gates can open and everything inside can be shown without consequence. But trust is not a shield. It is a risk, and every risk carries a cost. When you overshare, you do not just gamble with small stakes. You hand over the only leverage you truly own, your privacy. The danger is not in the immediate moment, but in the fact that most people do not betray instantly. They store what you have given them, quietly, as a form of insurance. Machiavelli warned, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." They will honor your secrets until a situation arises where breaking that honor serves them more than keeping it. You imagine loyalty as permanent, but loyalty is a weather pattern. It shifts with the winds of opportunity, self-preservation, or advantage. The colleague you once confided in about your frustrations may one day be competing for the same position you want. The friend you told your fears to may face pressure to protect themselves by giving you up. The family member who promised to stand by you may someday find that silence costs them more than speaking. The truths you spoke in vulnerability do not vanish after the moment passes. They become part of a private archive in someone else's possession, and archives can be opened at any time. The illusion is convincing because betrayal is rarely immediate. Most will guard your secrets at first, partly out of conscience, partly out of habit. But over time, as their needs change, the same information you once trusted them with begins to shift value in their mind. In moments of conflict, desperation, or ambition, those details become bargaining chips. They can be traded for status, influence, or self-preservation. The betrayal does not always look like open war. Sometimes it is subtle, indirect, and deniable. A single sentence in the wrong ear, a carefully chosen omission that leaves you vulnerable, and the one who does it will justify it to themselves as survival, not treachery. The only way to survive the illusion of trust is to treat it as a shifting currency. Share in controlled doses, never more than what you could survive being repeated in a hostile room. Even in deep relationships, maintain an inner vault. Truths so essential to your power and stability that they never leave your possession. Let people feel close to you without ever truly holding the keys to your inner life. Because in the end, trust is not about how much you give. It is about how much you withhold, knowing that even the most loyal hands can drop what they hold when the ground begins to shake. There are those who speak to fill silence, and those who speak to signal. But there is another type entirely. The listener whose silence is deliberate. They rarely interrupt, never rush to offer advice, and seem content to let others carry the weight of the conversation. In truth, their quiet is not passivity. It is the patience of someone collecting fragments, arranging them in patterns, and storing them for use when the moment is most advantageous. Some people listen to understand. Predators listen to hunt. You feel it in the way they tilt their heads slightly when you speak, how they give you the full weight of their attention without distraction. It feels flattering at first, as if they value every word. But attention this focused is rarely given without reason. Every sentence you hand them becomes a thread they will weave into a net. And when the day comes, that net tightens. You won't even remember giving them the rope. It starts innocently. You tell them about a recent frustration, thinking it's harmless. They file it away. You mention a long-term goal, unaware you've just marked your weak spot. You speak of a fear, and without realizing it, you've pointed to the lever they will one day pull. Machiavelli observed that men are so simple and so much creatures of circumstance that the deceiver will always find someone ready to be deceived. The predator's gift lies not in their ability to speak, but in their ability to turn what you give them into the exact tool they need to move you. The wrong listener doesn't just remember what you say. They plan around it. They will use your words to predict your reactions, to craft the precise bait you will bite, to design traps that feel like opportunities. They might mirror your language to create false familiarity, echoing your concerns to deepen trust. They might casually introduce scenarios that nudge you toward choices that benefit them. And all the while, you believe you are making independent decisions. You aren't. You are following the map you unknowingly drew for them. A predator in conversation rarely pushes for information directly. They plant a seed of curiosity, offer a small detail about themselves, then wait for you to reciprocate with more. When you hesitate, they adjust their tone, soften their gaze, and lower their voice until you mistake their patience for understanding. In truth, they are testing how much pressure you can handle before you speak freely. And once they know, they never need to push again. You will feed them willingly, mistaking it for connection. Watch how people handle the information you give them. Do they respect its boundaries, or do they return to it in moments of tension? Do they repeat your words in a different context, testing how you respond? Do they tease in ways that reveal they've been studying your reactions? If you notice these signs, close the floodgates instantly. Reduce the flow to nothing but surface-level noise. Because if someone is asking too many personal questions without offering anything in return, they are not just listening. They are building a file on you. And that file will not be used to protect you. It will be used to control you. Some patterns of weakness are visible only when silence is broken. There is the person who speaks to persuade, the one who speaks to dominate, and then the one who speaks because they cannot stand the weight of being unseen. For them, words are not tools, but offerings, fragments of themselves placed into the hands of whoever will take them. And in that offering lies the quiet surrender of control. The need to be understood is the most dangerous craving of all. You think you are seeking connection, but what you are really doing is handing over a blueprint of your mind. Every confession, every unguarded detail is a piece of the lock that protects you. And once you give enough pieces away, someone will assemble the key. The predator doesn't need to force it from you. They just need to let you talk until you can't stop. It begins with the smallest disclosures. You share an opinion, a personal habit, a frustration that's been gnawing at you. The person listening nods, smiles, and reassures you that your honesty is admirable. That praise is calculated. They know that a mind hungry for validation will always come back for another hit. Machiavelli wrote that men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. In this context, love is not romance. It's approval. And once they give you enough of it, fear will never be necessary. You will hand them everything they want. The more you seek validation, the more you bleed control. You start revealing things that were never meant to be shared. Not because they asked, but because you want to keep the feeling of being seen alive. You tell them your insecurities so they can comfort you. You tell them your ambitions so they can cheer for you. What you don't see is that every round of applause makes you more predictable, more pliable. And when the time comes, they will trade their understanding for influence over you. People will feed your ego in exchange for your secrets. They'll ask you about your past under the guise of empathy, when in truth, they are mapping the soft spots in your armor. They'll mirror your thoughts to create the illusion of deep alignment. And each time you mistake this for truth, you give them another lever to pull. This isn't a conversation. It's a transaction, and you are paying with pieces of yourself. Replace the need to be understood with the discipline to be unreadable. Let them wonder what drives you. Let them misinterpret your silence. Let them build an incomplete version of you in their mind, one that keeps them guessing but never grants them power. The less they truly know, the less they can control. And when you remove the drug of validation from your system, you remove the hooks that others would use to reel you in. In every exchange of words, there is a hidden transaction. Some speak to fill the void. Others speak to be liked. But the rare few understand that the one who speaks less controls the flow. Information is a currency that gains value when withheld and loses all leverage once given away. In this quiet economy, silence is not absence. It is stored power. You think silence makes you look evasive, but in truth, it makes others work harder. Every withheld answer forces them to guess, to fill in blanks with their own projections. And those guesses are rarely accurate. Their miscalculations become your cover. Machiavelli wrote that the wise man does at once what the fool does. Finally, strategic silence is doing at once what the careless will only realize when it's too late, controlling the narrative before it even exists. Silence unsettles people. They will probe, joke, or even provoke you just to make you break it. They need your words to measure you, to confirm their assumptions, to prepare their strategies. The moment you overshare, you remove their uncertainty. You hand them a map of your thinking, and once they have that map, they can choose their attack with precision. But if they are left guessing, their moves will be defensive, hesitant, and wasteful. That is the advantage you surrender when you talk too much. The most dangerous leaks happen in moments of excitement or frustration, when your guard drops in laughter, or when anger presses your tongue to move faster than your mind. You reveal things you would never say in calculated calm. Strategic silence is not just about refusing questions. It's about mastering yourself in these volatile moments. If you can hold your tongue when the urge to speak is strongest, you have already outplayed most people. When asked something personal, answer without answering. Redirect the question. Offer a harmless generality. Use humor to shift the focus. This is not deception. It is preservation. Every detail you choose not to reveal remains a card you can play later on your terms, when it carries the greatest impact. And in a world where people weaponize your openness, control over timing is control over power. Do not underestimate how deeply people crave to know what you are thinking. The less they know, the more they will speculate. And speculation is a battlefield you control. Let them build their illusions, fight their imaginary wars, and prepare for threats that do not exist. When the truth finally emerges, if it ever does, it will be because you allowed it, and not before. In every social arena, perception is built not only by what is shown, but by what remains hidden. People instinctively judge others based on the visible fragments, yet they rarely question the gaps. These gaps are where control resides. A complete image invites easy prediction. An incomplete one forces uncertainty. In that uncertainty lies protection, leverage, and the silent advantage over those who think they truly see you. You believe that honesty earns respect, but in reality, it earns access. The more complete the picture you hand over, the more easily others can anticipate your moves, manipulate your triggers, and box you into an identity you cannot escape. Machiavelli understood this when he observed that the vulgar crowd always is taken by appearances. When you reveal too much, you give them the full blueprint. When you reveal selectively, you leave them with only scattered pieces. And pieces can be arranged to look like anything you choose. The human mind cannot tolerate empty spaces. When you leave a detail unsaid, others rush to fill it with their own assumptions. And in doing so, they reveal more about themselves than about you. They project their desires, their fears, their biases. And those projections can be shaped, exploited, or turned against them. Oversharing destroys this dynamic. The moment you supply every fact, you eliminate the unknown. You give away the silent leverage of ambiguity. And with it, the respect that comes from being unreadable. The most skilled players in power games never simply refuse to answer. They answer in ways that misdirect without lying. They offer something that feels like revelation, but reveals nothing that could weaken them if repeated. It is a calculated performance, a public self that is consistent enough to be trusted, but incomplete enough to remain ungraspable. This is how mystique is engineered. It is not an accident. It is a discipline. Before you speak, apply the only test that matters. If this is repeated in my absence, will it strengthen me or weaken me? If it strengthens, say it with precision. If it weakens, it becomes a secret. And secrets are not simply hidden. They are preserved for moments when they can be weaponized in your favor. Even those you consider closest should never hold the complete map of your life. Relationships change. Loyalties shift. Time turns allies into competitors. Confidants into liabilities. What you tell someone today, in trust, can become tomorrow's currency in their survival. This is why the inner vault, the truths that could damage you, must remain closed to all but yourself. And even then, you must be aware of the temptation to open it. You will be judged more by what you hide than by what you reveal. In a world where information is traded like currency, your silence becomes a signal of value. People will respect the boundaries they cannot cross. They will feel the weight of the things you do not say. And in their curiosity, they will give you more than you ever gave them. That is the true art of withholding, turning absence into power and mystery into an unbreachable fortress.